You tear up faster than you want to. A song, a memory, a sharp tone in someone's voice. You tell yourself, why am I like this? Why does emotion spill out before you can stop it? Visual, slow-moving light patterns. And somewhere inside, there's a quiet fear. That crying means you're weak, or unstable, or too much. But what if that story is wrong? And what if your tears are doing something very specific, something your brain learned long ago? 2. Problem deep dive. You don't cry because you want attention. Most of the time, you'd rather not cry at all. It happens in small moments. A mild disagreement. Someone sounding disappointed. Watching someone else struggle. Visual, person sitting alone, eyes watering, city lights outside. You feel it rise in your chest before logic can catch up. Your throat tightens. Your eyes burn. And suddenly, you're managing emotion and embarrassment at the same time. So you apologize for crying. You downplay it. You tell yourself to toughen up. Over time, this doesn't just affect your emotions. It shapes your identity. You start seeing yourself as fragile, too sensitive, hard to deal with. You hesitate to speak up. You avoid conflict. You rehearse conversations in your head, trying to prevent the moment where emotion might leak out. And slowly, crying stops being just a reaction. It becomes part of how you judge yourself. But here's the part most people miss. Crying easily isn't random. And it's not a personality flaw. It's a pattern. One that makes sense once you see where it comes from. Visual, abstract brain animation. 3. Reframe. You're not broken. You're not emotionally weak. In many cases, crying easily is a learned adaptation. Your nervous system didn't choose this because it failed. It chose it because, at some point, this response worked. Maybe expressing emotion quickly reduced conflict. Maybe it brought care, safety, or understanding. Maybe holding things in felt dangerous, so release became the safest option. The brain keeps what works, even if it stops fitting later. So instead of asking what's wrong with me, a better question is, what did my nervous system learn about emotion? That question changes everything. Visual, empty room with sunlight. 4. Psychological mechanism. Let's talk about what's happening in your brain. Emotion starts in deeper, faster systems, especially the limbic system. This part of the brain reacts before words form. In people who cry easily, this system is often highly responsive, not broken. Responsive. Think of it like a smoke alarm. Some alarms only go off when there's a real fire. Others go off when you burn toast. The sensitive alarm isn't stupid. It's tuned for early detection. Visual. Simple animation of a smoke alarm lighting up. Now add another layer. If, earlier in life, emotional expression was one of the safest ways to release pressure, your brain linked emotion right arrow, release very quickly. Crying becomes the fastest exit valve. Here's a simple mental model. Emotion builds right arrow body signals, overload right arrow tears, release tension. Tears aren't the problem. They're the body's regulation strategy. Neurologically, crying activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part that calms you down. It lowers arousal after emotional spikes. So ironically, crying is your brain trying to stabilize you. The contradiction is this: what feels like losing control is actually your system trying to regain it. But there's still a question hanging open. If crying is regulation, why does it feel so shameful? We'll come back to that. Visual, waves moving slowly. 5. Practical framework. This isn't about stopping tears. It's about changing your relationship with them. Here's a framework grounded in psychology, not advice, but mechanisms. Step 1. Name the speed, not the emotion. What to do. When you feel tears coming, don't label the feeling as too emotional. Label it as fast. Why it works. This separates intensity from identity. Your brain reacts quickly, not incorrectly. Cognitive relabeling reduces self-judgment, which lowers secondary stress. Less shame equals less emotional amplification. Real-life example. Instead of thinking, I'm overreacting, you think, my system reacts fast. I can slow the next step. Visual. Notebook with one sentence written. Fast reaction, neck wrong reaction. Step 2. Create a pause before interpretation. What to do? Give yourself 10 to 15 seconds before explaining what the emotion means. Why it works. Emotion and interpretation use different brain systems. Pausing prevents the emotional brain from hijacking the narrative. This interrupts the loop, where tears immediately turn into self-criticism. Real-life example. Someone raises their voice. You feel tears. Instead of thinking, I can't handle anything, you pause and think, let me feel first. Meaning comes later. Visual. Slow fade between two abstract shapes. Step 3. Separate expression from safety. What to do? Ask yourself, am I actually unsafe right now? Why it works. Your nervous system may be responding to emotional memory, not present danger. This engages the prefrontal cortex, the part that checks reality. Real-life example. You cry during feedback at work. Instead of assuming threat, you remind yourself, I'm not in danger. I'm receiving information. Visual. Person standing still while background slowly moves. Step 4. Practice delayed release, not suppression. What to do? Tell yourself, I don't need to release this immediately. Why it works. Suppression backfires. Delay builds tolerance. You're teaching your nervous system that intensity doesn't equal urgency. Real life example. You feel emotional in public. You allow yourself to say, I'll process this later tonight. And you actually do. Visual. Evening light through a window. Step 5. Redefine strength internally. What to do. Consciously update what strength means to you. Why it works. Beliefs shape emotional response. If crying equals weakness in your mind, shame intensifies the reaction. Changing the belief reduces emotional load. Real life example. You stop apologizing for tearing up. Not dramatically, just quietly. You let the moment pass without self-attack. Visual. Calm face reflected in glass. 6. Integration. Here's the model to remember. Fast emotion. Early release. Learned regulation. That's it. Your system reacts early. It releases through tears. Because at some point, that kept you balanced. The work isn't to become colder. It's to become more spacious around emotion. When you stop fighting tears, they often soften on their own. Not always, but often enough to matter. And when they don't, you're still not failing. Visual. Waves returning to calm. 7. Quiet, empowering, close. You don't cry easily because you're weak. You cry because your system listens closely. Sensitivity isn't the opposite of strength. Unconscious sensitivity is. As awareness grows, choice grows too. And maybe the question isn't, how do I stop crying? But something gentler. What is my nervous system trying to protect? Visual. Soft light slowly filling the screen. Let that question sit with you.